What's up, guys? It's Barrett Korselman here with another episode of the podcast, along with my co-host, Miss Tori Tinklepaw.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
And today we've got another great episode for you. Really going to be talking about some progressions in like your fitness and your journey, and kind of let Tori take this one away. She's the one that's game planned the most on this episode and what she really wants to talk about.
So I think that we're going to kind of combine it into a category of I call trusting the process. And actually, thinking kind of my entire career, whether it was softball or in this gym, I realized that that's kind of been my motto. I remember it being written on my locker, actually, my last year at Sam Houston when I was playing softball there. So I think that trusting the process is an easy way to kind of combine lots of things that work towards success. A couple of things that kind of just stick out that could be in the trust the process umbrella would be, setting goals with a timeline that are realistic for you. Being intentional on what's required to achieve those goals, so doing things with purpose, and then reacting to adversity when failing while trying to achieve those goals. So doing all those things and kind of understanding those things is trusting the process, and the process is working towards whatever goal that is, becoming better at whatever it is that you want to become better at.
Yeah, and I think the first bullet point that you've laid out is with the trusting the process is setting goals with a timeline. And I think it's so easy to set goals that either are too easy
Right.
or are not attainable.
Yeah.
And so I think with setting goals for someone, it comes down to having someone help you establish those goals. It's someone that knows you from like an outside perspective.
Right.
To really help you establish goals that one are hard because you need challenging goals, but the second step would be having goals that are attainable.
Yeah,
so then you can reach those goals and then get your next goals.
For sure.
And I think it's super easy. I mean, I've done it. I'd imagine you've done it where you've set goals that weren't attainable.
Yeah.
And at that point, you probably don't end up doing them because it's at a point where you go a couple months with them, maybe you did it for a month, and then you realize it's not attainable. And then by that point, you give up. And so setting goals, I think, is definitely the best step to start with.
And I think the timeline is really what helps, because I think the timeline is what kind of identifies what might be realistic for you. If you have, a goal of X and you want to achieve that in 1 month, that's going to kind of help you measure what goal can be achieved in a month versus if it's a 6-month goal. Okay, yeah, it is a harder task to achieve. So I think the timeline is most important on that end, but also on the end of, okay, I want to, achieve this. Well, if you don't have a when you want to achieve it, then are we ever actually working towards it? Because it's just I'm going to do it. Okay, well, when are we going to do it? So I think that having the goal on the end of putting pressure on getting things done to achieve that goal, but also understanding goals that are easier to achieve in less time versus more difficult, obviously are going to take more time. So I think the timeline also gives feedback. If you're have a goal of whatever it is in 6 months, as you're chipping away at whatever it takes to become successful, you have those check marks, or you have goals inside of that bigger goal that you're seeing is working towards success. So that allows you to kind of see and stay motivated or disciplined towards the overall end goal.
Yeah. And I think another big thing of when you're setting your goals is have someone that you trust with those goals. I think I've done it before where you set goals, but you don't tell anybody because you think you're going to do this all on your own. But if you tell someone your goals, whether it's Tori as your coach here at the General, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your best friend, doesn't matter. Choose someone that's gonna, your dog. Choose someone that's gonna, actually hold you accountable for it. But that's also going to understand what you're going through and something that, they're going to pick you up when you maybe fall off track. Because another thing that I've gone through in my time is that maybe the goal didn't happen exactly how you thought, or something goes wrong with that goal. And it's so easy to sometimes just back away from the goal because you're like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
Versus like, no, you hit a bump in the road.
Right.
And if you have someone there that's going to hold you accountable, they can get you right back on track.
Yeah, you just need a reminder of the importance of the goal you originally set, in that moment, because it is easy when you feel defeated and when you feel like it's not worth it to not want to keep doing it. So then understanding why you actually set whatever goal it was originally, showing importance to that. can kind of light a fire under your butt again on going back to work towards that same goal.
Yeah, and I think so going from setting your goals and doing them like with intention and with a timeline, I think it'd be good to maybe share for your perspective what your current goal is, how you've outlined a timeline.
Yeah.
So then that way you can give an example of a good way of going about, your goals and how you should maybe, whether you've used a notebook, whether you do it in your phone and actually, write down your goals. I think that's another thing we didn't say is that like, don't just keep them in your head.
Yeah,
speak them, write them down, put them somewhere where maybe you see them every day.
Yeah.
Some people think that might not show that maybe you're as motivated as you think, but like, it's so easy just to forget if you just said it. I mean, we were talking about what we're going to talk about next on the podcast, and we had a bunch of ideas going through our head, but until we actually wrote them down, nothing was going to happen.
Right.
So the same thing with your goals is like, get them written down. So then that way you see it in front of you.
Yeah.
But with that, kind of go through what your current goals are and how long the process is. I mean, I'm sure you have goals that are pretty fast.
Yeah.
And then you also have long-term goals.
Yeah. So, I think I've been considered myself competitive in CrossFit really once I stopped playing softball, and obviously that had to progress and I had to become a lot better. But I enjoyed wanting to do well in the open. Really was kind of my main task each year since 2017. The last 2 years of the open prior to my surgery, I realized that I could also do pretty well, and the qualifying standards or the way the layout of the season changed to where it rewarded those that did better than a lot of people in the open itself, getting to go to quarterfinals. So that then made it fun to make it to a stage that that others weren't in a competitive mindset, and then that's giving that feedback, and then there's more levels to continue to progress towards as far as qualifying goes, which then comes semifinals. So realizing that number one, I enjoyed doing that and trying to make it to the next thing, but number two, that some of my goals, which could be making a little bit further than just quarterfinals, didn't seem like the most impossible thing for me to achieve. I did well in lots of workouts in the quarterfinals a couple years ago, which then again kind of made it realistic that, okay, if I, really tried, how good could I be and where could I go in this? So I then had surgery, which put me out of the open last year. That was following the season where I made it to quarterfinals. So I was out of season where I, again, expected to probably make at least quarterfinals. And then that made me really have time to kind of sit in the fact of what do you want to do whenever you're released?
Healthy.
Yeah, and healthy. And no other answer came about besides I want to make a semifinal. I know I can make a quarterfinal. And that's challenging, yes, but also at the same time, I know I can be better than that. It may not happen this year or the next year, but I think that at some point, if I work hard enough, I think I can make that. So that became my goal, and the decision to have surgery and go about my recovery and my training during recovery status, plus once I was actually released, completely shifted because my intentions were completely surrounded by the fact that I'm going to make a semifinal at some point. So then I needed to, really figure out, it's not just I'm going to do it, when am I going to do it? Because I think that I needed to, again, like we just talked about, have goals and set the boundaries of what I'm going to do to achieve those goals in a certain time. Put a little bit of pressure on that, but also I was extremely realistic about it. So it became that I had surgery in December, and 10 months is, what day is it? 14th? 13th. In 7 days, we'll mark 10 months. Recovery was 8 to 10 months is what they kind of quoted me. So I pretty much did, once I was allowed to sweat, I kind of did anything and everything I could do, not involving the shoulder, tons of safety bar stuff, and just really built a good core. And just during that time, just thought about just my plan and what I wanted to be doing over and over again. So I was still training and still working out, but really I realized working on my mind. So then once I was, released and able to progress, I continued doing things, and I got back on Proven at some point during that. And my mind was already where it needed to be. And then at that point, it was just getting better physically. And that's just with time.
Yeah.
So I realized that I was just going to tell myself to just be 1000% intentional and trust smarter people than me. So I, dialed in nutrition, my training, and just did everything that Proven Fitness says. So shout out Proven and Nick Johnson. And just like became more of like, why are you doing these things? And before even like certain pieces, why are you doing this? Where will this make you better to be able to achieve the goals you want to achieve? And that completely changed my training, not just coming in here to work out to get things done, but coming in here and doing things with an actual purpose. So, I told myself that obviously I'd be able to do this open, which made me excited. I knew I wanted to absolutely make quarterfinals. There's no question there, and there's not an excuse. I've had enough time to at least make that.
And I think that's pretty gonna easily happen.
Yeah. So then see how close I can get to qualifying for a semifinal this year is my goal. But also being understanding and realistic, meaning obviously I'll be bummed when I win or if I don't. But be realistic that, it's going to be essentially a year since you had shoulder surgery. So coming back and making it to a field of very, very, very good fit people is a big challenge that I'm setting on myself. So understanding that, and then with the feedback of if I make it, freaking awesome. And if I don't, how close am I to then really push for my next year? So my timeline is I want to be as successful as I can this year, to show that I've had a good comeback year, but actually I'm laying out myself for the following season to make a semifinal. And in the meantime, I'm doing, lots of qualifiers and things like that to really practice the competing aspect, because that's not something I've ever really challenged myself with before either.
I think with that, it comes to exactly what we talked about, like the timeline. The timeline is like, okay, I've trained my butt off. What is going to come February, March, whatever the open is this year? What does that go to? Quarterfinals, and then from there, how well do I place in quarterfinals?
Yeah.
From there, that establishes you, okay, where am I currently at? You kind of have an idea based on some qualifiers that you've done, but it's one of those. It's like, okay, the open, the way it's structured is so completely different than these qualifiers. Qualifiers, I mean, you're doing 3 to 6 workouts in a weekend. They're all pretty hardcore, whereas the open, it's 1 workout a week, and you're doing, you potentially could do it 3 times if you really had to throughout that week, versus, you don't really have that time when it comes to a qualifier. So definitely different on how they're structured, but obviously super excited to see when that time comes, where you're going to be at. I mean, currently you're about to do the Fittest Experience qualifier. So these are always posted a week later than what we're recording at right now. So next week when this one is posted, she'd already have done the week 1 of the qualifiers. But basically, I think that gets into, the next step is, you've established your goals, you have a timeline, there's going to be things that come in between it. And I think the second topic that we're going to go over today, second bullet point of our topic today is that it comes a time where you need to start being intentional on what's required to achieve those goals, and then do things with purpose. And I think she slightly touched on that, but from my perspective, what I've seen Tori do, and again, everyone needs to do this, whether it doesn't matter what your goals is, because you can do this regardless of the goal. But from my perspective on how Tori has done so with her goals is, 1, she realized that her schedule is, in my opinion, a lot farther like strung on, if that's a good way to say it, I guess, of like the time frame of her day. We've touched on it on like a trailer episode in the first episode about, her schedule is about 3 a.m. to pretty much like 7 p.m., whether that's consistently coaching classes, doing personal training clients, getting her own training done. So she realized, okay, I've got really long days consistently. It's one of those where most people don't have to do that, especially people that are trying to be competitive in CrossFit. Really, usually the only thing they're focused on is their training and their nutrition and their recovery. And you've got a lot more on a daily basis that goes into that. So your thing was, okay, I'm going to lock in my nutrition, because that's one thing that if you can have a really good nutrition, it can help with your recovery. It can help you feel better in the gym, get you stronger, get you fitter, etc. So you did that, which I think you're following.
No, Working Against Gravity.
Working Against Gravity. So she's paying for a coach there, investing in herself. So yes, it's taking some money, on a monthly basis to do so. But again, it's the accountability. I'm no genius. when it comes to nutrition. I've got, some knowledge, but it's always good to have that expert, in your corner helping you with nutrition. So she's got that. And now she's done it for so long that it's kind of to a point where,
eat the same thing every day.
Yeah, kind of eat the same thing every day. And when you have goals, that's attainable. But I think that was one of the biggest things that you did. And the second one was really trusting the programming that you're following. We've collectively followed many, many different, programs, many different, coaching, ideas.
Yeah.
And now from all those, she got to a point where she joined Proven, which is, Tia's team. And pretty much at that point, I think kind of fell in love now with the journey of what training is supposed to be like. And it's one of those where it's like, okay, now you're working out. You're not working out.
Yeah.
You're training.
Yeah.
And every day there's going to be things maybe in your program that you're like, dang, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be days that you have something that you like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do that.
Yeah.
But it's the process. It's knowing that,
knowing why you're doing,
knowing that the program that you're following has been proven to lead with results.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty obvious there. So it's knowing that continue to grind with nutrition, doing your best you can there, following your program and, letting that show for what it's worth. And then you're just your natural athletic ability.
And I think just like, I think that CrossFit does in itself kind of does a good job of like showing progression, in my opinion. I think that with me as I'm trying to get closer to achieving what I want to achieve, I'm doing certain things in training that I'm getting better at, or I'm doing better in, specific workouts that are retested, or I'm getting better at qualifiers, or, becoming more experienced and more confident, whatever it is. And I think CrossFit as a whole does that. Obviously, like these qualifiers are doing the same thing, but for like our members here at the General, I think the same thing is done because so much, skill, strength, and conditioning are tested progressively daily here.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's cool for, it's easy to pick out something that I want to see myself get better at. So we talked about, goal setting and timeline. And so I kind of want to relate this, a little bit to the people here and how you can do that. And I think that is easy because there's so many options to be like, I want to get better at this. That's CrossFit allows that because, you have pull-ups and you may come in and never done a pull-up in your life. So, you start with the basics of ring rows and then we progress from there. You set a goal, a realistic goal, depending on the athlete, on how far away are we from getting that. And then you set the goal to get one. Or, you want to squat 200 pounds, or you want to run a sub 8 minute mile, whatever it is. There's just so much, to be able to test, and there's so many measurable components in CrossFit. And I think it's like cool and motivating for me as like the leader of this gym when I see people, get excited about achieving or becoming better. And I think that people here are constantly getting better and they don't realize that I see that, it's exciting for me to watch. Like I see people daily. I'm like, oh, he's better at that today, or she's better at that today, or that she looks strong or fitter. That was a smart plan. So I'm constantly watching all these people naturally get better at something that they don't even realize they probably are until something bigger happens for them because I see so much smaller things. So I think that
it's the analogy of like when you're trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
And someone who sees you every day maybe doesn't see it as much, but then you see someone that you haven't saw in 3 months and they're like, whoa, you look different. You look great.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing where it's like when you're in the gym every single day, it's easy to not see the results that you've gotten because you're every single day, which is obviously a great thing to be coming every day, but it's so easy. So it's awesome when like your coach is like, wow, do you remember 2 months ago you didn't do one pull-up? You had to use the biggest blue band.
Like so many people are doing like RX movements lately.
It's
just so
and
cool
so it's really good to have a coach that remembers those things so they can remind you, hey, 3 months ago you had to use the biggest red band to do a pull-up, and now you're doing strict pull-ups, or now you're down to that light blue band, or whatever it is,
or even like
just in pull-ups in general. But I think that's the hardest thing when it comes to setting your goals is it's so easy because you're grinding every single day that sometimes you lose track of like, what have I accomplished? And you also get sometimes into a point in your head where like, you don't ever think it's good enough.
Yeah, for sure. I think even too, it's cool to see people who like come here and like would have been normally scared to either be in a bigger class or to see a workout and think they have to accomplish that. And they start coming in here and you can tell they actually enjoy being here. I was actually talking to some people the other day, they had never really worked out before walking in this gym. And I was like, I think that it's cool that I see y'all come in here and you look happy to be here. So I think it's just interesting what this place can do and what, fitness can do for people, physically and, mentally is in a healthier aspect. Now I don't know what to do without you here.
No, you're good. All right, guys, had to check some of the technology.
Security blanket.
No, I mean, I think with going over the members, I think one of the things to touch on is in a way we're helping you establish goals by having programming that is progressive.
Right.
And I've been to so many gyms, and is their programming good in a way of it's fun and that it's like, okay, you got a hard workout? Yes. And in the grand scheme of things, the way CrossFit I think is designed is progressive overload. I mean, it's trying to be in that manner, but sometimes it's so easy to where gyms get caught up in wanting to make it look good. Yeah. So then all of a sudden you're not really progressing though. Right. And I think that's one thing that we, or you have really strived to do is yes, the workouts, when we, our setup of how we go about coaching people here is we have a great warm up. The warm up is based on movements that you're doing for the day. So that way you can get ready for those movements.
I was coaching during that time.
I was coaching. And then from there we go into like your general strength session. Now that could be a straight raw strength session. So it could be like just back squats. It also could be heart rate driven strength training, interval style strength training. And I think that's one of the nicest things is because even though it might be different setups of the strength, it's all progressive. Normally we're doing 4 to 6 week strength cycles and they compound each other over the 4 to 6 weeks each time period. I've listened to other people's podcasts and other knowledge. So has she, and we found, especially when I was still here coaching, and we've done this philosophy since I was here as a head coach or second coach, whatever you want to call it, is that 4 to 6, maybe tops of like 8 weeks strength cycle. Reason being that we found is that we've done the 12-week cycles, we've done the 16-week cycles. And as a member, it's great if you're trying to, if you're able to be here every single day, you never miss a day type of athlete. But if you're someone who sometimes they're busy, sometimes they can't get here, those 4 to 6 week cycles are great because, even if a member joins in week 2 or week 3, it's not that big a deal because the cycle is going to be close to being over. And then guess what? You get to start with a new cycle.
You also get even me, when I'm generally on like 8 to 12 week cycles and like, that's hard.
Yeah, no, it is. That's why sometimes it's hard to stay committed to that. And it's so easy to jump off the bandwagon, you might say, of that strength cycle because you're like, man, I'm tired of doing that.
Get through 4 weeks.
So it's a 4 to 6 week cycle to the member, but essentially it's a year-long cycle when it comes to how we're programming because they all compound each other. Yeah. So I think that really, and so, we've just, really established the programming to be in the best way possible, easy for clients or members to stay committed, but then also lead with progressions so they can see how much better they've gotten. So in a way, we want you as a member or just in general establishing goals, but we're also helping you establish goals by the way we're programming.
Yeah, I think that when thinking about cycles, you can think about what's being focused on over that 4 weeks. If we're squatting, having a goal to either squat more weight or more importantly, squat better by the end of that cycle, or we're generally doing some sort of gymnastics at least once a week, whether it's pull-ups, toes to bar, possibly both, or running or rowing or biking. So there's a component there that's going to get used weekly minimally. So you can choose something of that, to get better at by the end of the cycle and then have a bigger goal of, if you don't have your first pull-up, getting one in 6 months, whatever it is. So then, over the course of the cycle, you're seeing that you're getting better at the overall goal, but then you know that long term, why are you doing these things to now get better at the bigger goal? So then, also understanding adversity and how to react to that over the course of that too, because you're not going to get better or be your best at something immediately. And so that's why I think having the bigger picture goal at the end is also important, because, you might get better at pull-ups, today, this week. And if, doing pull-ups really well, in 6 months is the goal, you might get better at pull-ups today. But then if we're just learning that difficult skill, next week, they may not be existent at all. And that happened to me as an athlete, so I get it. So then just understanding, hey, it's okay. My goal is to not be perfect at them right now, but in 6 months I want to be, or whatever it is. So I think that that's the easiest way to, and I say easiest very lightly because adversity is hard to deal with, but I think that making sure you do, have those checkpoints when trying to achieve the end goal, but understanding the true timeline you've given yourself. And that's why it's important of the end goal, because then otherwise, you get frustrated with failure early on, and failure is going to happen when trying to achieve something you've never done before.
Yeah.
So, after qualifier workouts recently, I was just like pretty discouraged with some of my performance. I expected to do better, and having that moment is okay because it shows me that I'm, hungry to do well, and I have goals, and I'm like, I thought that I was better than what I did, and that's okay to want to be better than you are right now. I think that excels progression as well, but then having to come back and be like, this didn't matter right now. This is just part of the journey.
Goal.
The true goal is not for another, what are we, like 4 months away from the Open or more. So I think that, again, the timeline of the goal, setting that first and then being intentional throughout the entire journey to achieve that goal is, kind of the mindset shift that has completely changed me. And knowing when you're starting that change too is important too, because then you are able to look back at it. And for me, it's easy because it was my surgery moment. So I know exactly when that happened and exactly how I've shifted since then. So knowing kind of where you're starting and where you want to go and being able to, watch that journey the entire time can help keep you on the straight and narrow towards the end goal.
No, for sure. And I think so. Like the first bullet point of our topic today was the, establishing the goals with a timeline. The second bullet point we touched on was, being intentional with that timeline. And we've touched on that a lot. And then the last one that she's already touched on a little bit would be the adversity side of things. The adversity side is knowing that you have to know that not everything is going to go perfect. That's the reason that there are goals. If everything went out perfectly, it wouldn't really be goals because you would have reached it already. So things are going to be tough. You're going to get faced with adversity. And for me, it's always leaning back onto one, looking back at your phone or your notebook and looking at your goal again.
Yeah.
And then that's a time where you're like, that's my goal.
Yeah.
And if you look at it and it's like, that's not really my goal, then okay, like maybe you got to relook into where your game plan is at. Self-evaluate what you really want. But at the end of the day, like if you look back at it and you're like, okay, that's my goal, then you're going to keep on going.
Yeah.
And that's when the attainability or the accountability comes into play of having the person next to you, whether you want it to be Tori here at the gym as your head coach and the owner, or you want it to be spouse or best friend or whoever it might be. Having that person accountable for you. So then that way you can keep on going. But the adversity side of it is, knowing that things don't go as planned. I mean, that's just life. And knowing that no matter what comes my way, there's a reason for it. And then from that point on, writing maybe notes down of like, okay, how do I overcome that?
Yeah.
And then what's the next step to getting it? Because also, I think when you write down your goals in your timeline, you almost got to leave like some spaces there because like things are going to come up that you didn't expect and you're going to have to be able to make adjustments because otherwise the goal isn't there. And I think if you don't have to make adjustments, that almost shows you that the goal might have been too easy.
Yeah.
Or if you're able just to get from point A to point B.
That's not actually the goal. That's just part of it,
And so sometimes it's going to take adjustments because you're having a goal that is attainable, but it is still very tough to get to.
Yeah.
You're not just going from point A to point B. You might be going from point A to all the way to Z.
And
so there's steps in between each one that you're going to have to overcome
for sure.
To finally reach that goal.
Well, I think adversity really too is more of like, you can look at them as experience. And I think that you can always learn from experience. When I play softball, I get beat on an outside pitch. Okay, that's not happening again. I'm learning from that. I'm taking that pitch away in my next at bat, or I'm looking for that first pitch, whatever it is. So you have to learn, from there. Same thing in CrossFit or in the gym, you go out too big of a set or too hot in a workout, next time you're doing something like that. In my situation, it's going to be tested again because I am trying to qualify. So these workouts are repeatable and you learn from these things. And so I think instead of looking at things as adversity, look at it as an experience to learn from. And yeah, you can be bummed and disappointed that you weren't successful in that moment, but now that's part of what you can use to be successful for that next moment you have for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those where, we want to help you as a member establish goals, and we want people to come in here. And yes, we know that some people, it's just you want to work out and you just want to get it in and out.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes it's just like that's what you say, but really you do have goals. So Tori wants to help you establish your goals, get you a great timeline, and then also be able to help you see yourself with the progression that you've had.
Yeah.
And so if you're watching this as one of our members, or maybe you're not a member of us, but you want to come try us out, come on in. You can get a free class in, learn from Tori. She can help you get signed up. From that point, help you establish goals and then get you to that next step of whatever it is for you. It might be you want to be the most athletic person that you've ever been, or it could just be like, I want to be able to take better care of my kids and be able to go do more outdoor activities with them, or whatever it is. We want to be able to help you reach those goals.
Yeah.
And so don't hesitate to talk to Tori or talk to other members in the gym or whoever it is to help you, set those goals. And then we just want to be here to support you and get you to that next goal.
Sure.
And I hope by listening to Tori, it kind of shows you that even with her hectic schedule that she has, she's got amazing goals. She's written out a timeline. She's already faced adversity with them. And she's continuing to grind to reach those goals because that's her most important goal. And so really, I mean, I think that's for the most part, really, what we wanted to talk about today on the episode is just knowing that, with COVID happening, 2020, just everything that's happened over these last couple of years, we know that it's so easy to know that things don't always go as well as you wanted them to.
Yeah. Trust in the process is big though. Good or bad, it's all a part of it.
But guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Again, on all of our episodes, we're trying to keep them about 30 minutes long. So then that way it's kind of to the point. And you can listen to on the way to work or wherever you're at and be able to get this done pretty quickly. Going forward, we're going to have, a set topic. And then from there, hopefully about 3 bullet points on each topic and, hit them pretty hard. Show, knowledge of what we've read or what we've learned from other people, but then also being able to share real life experiences with those, bullet points. So then you can see our perspective on what we're working on with that. And then as well as, just general knowledge about that topic.
Yeah.
But, we're really happy. Again, this will be episode 2 of the podcast. Our first real hard topic that we've done. And we're just excited to continue doing this on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Again, this weekend, Tori will be doing the Fittest Experience week 1 qualifiers. It's 3 workouts. I think she's going to probably do them all maybe tomorrow. So if you're one of our members and you want to come cheer her on, stop on by. She'll probably tell you the time. Maybe she's doing it. Stop on by if you want to cheer her on and support her as the owner of the gym and the head coach. And then from there, next week's episode, we'll be able, even though it'll be a week behind, we'll kind of give y'all some updates on how well she did, because I think people are interested in that.
Sure.
Definitely want to see you do well. And so we'll give you an update. There's actually one workout that potentially I think Tori could be really high up in the standings on the specific workouts because it's, something that really suits her well. But we're just excited to see her compete, grinding. But also, again, this touches back onto the topic we talked about today, that this is a goal of hers. Like, she wants to do really well in the qualifiers, but at the same time, like, she knows this is just another stepping stone to her major goal, which comes February or March and going into the next year. So again, that goes back to she's staying committed, she's staying true to what her goals are, and she's trusting the process.
Yep.
But again, if you're liking what you're seeing, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, because that's where all of our episodes are going to be on. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share it to all your friends, so that way they can, listen to some great topics on the way to work or wherever they're at. But thank y'all so much, guys. Stay tuned for the next episode. Peace out.
Go Astros.
Oh, yeah. Go Astros. They're going to be playing today in game 2 of the first round. So we're going to be cheering them on. As you saw, Tori's got the Space City jersey on today. And we're ready to have some fun this afternoon and watch the game. So stay tuned for the next episode. Peace out.
See ya.